Hi, Kim. It's so good to have you here today. How you doing?
Pretty good. Hey, Kelly. Nice to be
Good.
here.
Thank you so much. So we're first going to start off with you giving a brief introduction of yourself. And
Mhm.
because Kim is she's doing a lot of really cool things at the moment, we're going to first have her talk about her fashion and sustainability business and her love for sustainability, then kind of go into her spirituality and where that's taking her. And then she also does these amazing aroma scent workshops, and she's learning a lot about that. So that's the direction today. So yeah, let's talk about let's learn about you.
I can introduce myself and then we'll jump in wherever it makes sense. I have I work with both of my brain hemispheres actually, and it started with me being a very rational minded person and studying economics and wanting to do business and stuff. But then also something that's more on the creative side and more aligned with my morals was sustainability that came in.
Mm-hmm.
So even after graduating from my bachelor's, I was like, something feels odd. I don't want to do economics only. There must be more.
Yeah.
And came into fashion because my grandma used to work in fashion, and I think it's very emotionally loaded. Like she would dress me up, and it's all those memories of being like, it's such a bond to her and
Yeah.
me and being dressed and even having an early choice, like being really young and having a choice. So that's how fashion came in.
Oh, cool.
Um, and yeah, Swift to academia in Sweden, which was also inspiring because their sustainability is a bit different than Central Europe, I'd say.
Okay.
Um, and yeah, throughout the years, I became a blogger, and then that turned into an influencer slash content creator slash digital activist. And then people started hiring me to maybe work with their influencers or do content for them. So at that point, I was like, I should start a business.
Yeah.
So I just labeled my little something Sun and Rise. I was working with big fashion weeks like Copenhagen, Oslo, basically Scandinavia plus Berlin. So that's also how Kelly and I know each other from Berlin Fashion Week in Neonit.
Yes.
And yeah, now, as you teased already, it's transitioning into something that's more spiritual and more even closer to my purpose, I'd say.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice. And so talk about just fashion a little bit more. How is it different you found in Copenhagen, correct? How is the sustainability different than you say Central Europe? How is
I think generally when we zoom out of fashion and generally in society, seeing that the mindset of the masses of society is already more sustainable. So
yeah.
it's somehow in your DNA to have a behavior in your everyday life, going to work or being at work and having a bit different morals. And also, for me, Scandinavia being more feminist already when I came there in 2015 than I would see it in
Interesting.
Germany.
Yeah.
So that was interesting in terms of genderless fashion, if you talk about the aspect sustainability in fashion in Scandinavia.
Okay.
Um, what was interesting for me, though, to see was that Berlin already had a green ethical showroom. So they've been working on that, which then transitioned into being called Neonit. And at that point, Scandinavia didn't have that because they kind of took it for granted to look at materials and cuts to be more androgen and
Yeah.
more genderless.
Okay.
And longevity in terms of quality. I think that was a big one.
Yeah.
Even though in the times I was living in Sweden, what's that company called again? There's a Swedish fast fashion company. I even forgot.
Uh,
Mm,
oh, I don't know.
mm, I don't actually know. I forgot. But yeah, suddenly there's not only H&M based in Sweden, but also a even faster fast fashion
Oh,
corporate.
wow. Okay. Yeah.
So that's a bit of the dynamics. But yeah, it's been great learning to be there.
Yeah.
Great inspiration on the streets as well. Just seeing all these minimalist outfits and perfectly on spot. I'm like, ah, oh, it's great.
It is. It's such eye candy, isn't it? Because every time I'm on Instagram and I see all the Copenhagen Fashion Weeks or Stockholm Fashion Week or whatever, it's like, oh my God, they're just so well put together and it looks so
Yeah.
effortless. This is the thing as
Effortless.
well.
That's it. Yeah,
It's just,
totally.
I'm like, wow. It's kind of, I want to inspire to be that way. Just complete effortless. Not, no, it's
Yeah.
and so talk about sustainability. What is your relationship with sustainability and how do you incorporate it in your everyday life?
I think I've been a more optimistic change maker when I started. So in the first year of me being outspoken about it, I didn't buy clothes for a year, and I was really like sharing a lot of resources, sharing a lot of knowledge. By now, I must say, more skeptical of really zooming out into the whole structure and system we're living in, capitalism, and just like
Yeah.
these hyper objects that we're living in, where I'm like, okay, if I go vegan, then the corporate still continues having that carbon emission. There's no relation to it. Like, what is my actual individual footprint?
Yeah.
So I've become a bit lost, I must say, with that. And also just the whole scene, I would say, in fashion, even to become more greenwashed and for me to be more educated in spotting what's actually aligned with my morals. So I think it became a bit like wobbly and I'm a bit confused, which doesn't mean that I'm not trying to continue my lifestyle the way I have, but
Yeah.
it just seems like I need to make more choices in order to have that lifestyle, if it makes sense.
Yeah, completely. Well, I mean,
Yeah.
there's a lot of information out there right now about sustainability, greenwashing, but you don't know what is fact and what is not fact.
Yeah.
And I mean, anyone can publish something, right? And put it out there. The same with all the brands out there at the moment. You think that they're doing this great job because of this wonderful PR campaign, and behind it, it's just as shit as a big fast fashion label. And and this makes it difficult, I think, for people like you and me trying to really make a difference of, yeah, kind of where do you stand right now with all of this, and how can you make a
I think
difference?
for me, like a good rule of thumb in fashion is when people ask me like, "Hey, look at this! H&M has launched like a whole collection that's sustainable." But I'm like, yeah, I mean, there's like sustainability in terms of the item itself. Like, is this made fairly in other materials somehow sustainable? Then also zooming out and being like, what's the business aspect of it? Like, how does it fit in these systems and structures I said? And if you have a feeling that they're actually pursuing something more sustainable from art and it's in their vision and DNA, then I'm like, okay, that's like more reliable than just a collection.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because you have a lot of people really preaching about don't buy high street, don't buy fast fashion. But I disagree because if you do, you also have a range of what people can afford, right? And so not everyone can afford really high, expensive pieces. But if you find something in your budget that happens to be from H&M, but you wear it for 4 or 5 years because you love it so much, that already is sustainable because one, you're not putting yourself in debt, and two, you are wearing that item. It's about wearing things that you love and you appreciate, right? It's
With that, I think you're really well explaining cost per use.
yeah, exactly.
Like, I have another jean shirt. I've been wearing it for like 5 years in autumn, winter, and spring.
Yeah.
And I bought it on a sale. It's a fair fashion brand, but I only paid like 50 euros. So breaking it down per every time I buy it and wear it, it's like,
Yeah.
that's exactly where sustainability comes in, like the longevity of things, for sure.
Exactly. I was having a conversation with my husband the other day about Fashion Week and how I find and why fast fashion came into popularity in the first place. And it'll be interesting to get your take on this. I find that fashion for the longest time was so exclusive that it was only for the rich, and and it was quite a luxury item, that if they would have made fashion available to everyone from the very beginning, you wouldn't have this, oh, I have to be on trend, or I have to have this, I have to have this, because the only way they could be a part of that is to create fast fashion, and to create a cheaper model of that expensive luxurious piece. Which, yeah, okay, fine, it's great that you have, H&M didn't used to be so fast fashion. They used to have two collections a year, and then it was the 52 seasons that came into place. That's what's made it is what it is today, right? And
I totally agree. Like, looking at fashion history, which is not my topic fully, but I think like the aspect of class really comes in strongly to be able to make yourself look like you belong to somewhere else or carry yourself with another privilege. Um, but I also think I'm going to blame capitalism here again because even like my grandma or my grandparents growing up really poor, fashion was important to them to express that they're part of a certain social class, but they spend like a lot of money on one single item, but then they wore that
Exactly.
for like years.
Yeah.
So it's not like the same mechanism still counts in of us being like, oh, I want to have an identity that carries itself in 2022 differently.
Yeah.
And I want to belong somewhere. So it's more about identity than class, I'd say. But still, clothes is like the means of making your identity and class change in a way.
And so how do you think, let's take, for instance, Frankfurt Fashion Week is this week, and you are a major part of Neoknit and Pre-Peak. That was going to happen, but unfortunately Pre-Peak got canceled because of COVID. How do you think the industry right now can encourage us? How is it different from fast fashion, and how can it encourage us as individuals and consumers to buy less?
Good one. I'm not sure if that's actually what Fashion Week is for, right? I mean, it's there for buyers to equip their shops. It's there to like see what the new trends are. Though Neonate especially is doing a lot in community work, like just on their Instagram, it's a lot about bringing people together and inspiring each other and seeing that it is possible. And when we talk in terms of like newly produced sustainable fashion, as it is the case for Fashion Weeks, I think we can always look out to find those that have like a good material that makes it last longer.
Yeah.
But I mean, Fashion Week, even though it's sustainable or not, still works in this also capitalist cycle of being like, we're there twice a year, we have 2 seasons, and we're going to launch the new trends, and we're going to like equip the shops with the new things. So it's a bit like still in that case, but I think that's where also like talks and community work comes in, just to bring people together.
Yeah.
And for me, I would say it's more about like communities, NGOs, and like you and your personal network, just to be like, hey friends, let's swap. Hey friends, let's go to a thrift shop or flea market. Like really look at what you can do immediately in your world.
And so describe your style.
I think I have like 2 sets. There's like me trying to be really functional, like jumping on the bike, needing to have a lot of pockets, like things accessible.
Yeah.
And then there's also me being like big fluffy dresses and like jewelry and like more on the maximalist spectrum.
Yeah.
But for me, it's a lot about like straight cuts or A cuts. And I try to not use patterns actually. Like I'm really trying to curate my wardrobe and be like, hey, okay, I have this one Leo vest, and that's basically the most pattern I have.
Yeah.
And everything is like similar colors. So
nice.
Trying to stay in a range.
And do you feel that your style is inspired by the minimalistic Swedish style? And do you also feel Berlin kind of inspires you as well in that way?
I'm resisting the Berlin influence because like the circles I hang out with are very trend chasing, I'd say. It's still a lot in like expressing yourself through clothes, so it's a bit more extravagant, I would say.
Yeah.
And then I'm just like, I'm just gonna stay the minimalist I was back before COVID as well.
Yeah.
But I think what like it's important to me is like, yes, Scandinavian minimalism, but with color.
Nice.
Like I'm not just wearing black all the time. Like I would get super bored. So for me, color is like a very central element for sure.
Nice.
Yeah.
And do you feel that fashion or sustainability goes hand in hand with spirituality? Do you think there can be a link there?
Such a good question. I wonder how much clothing can be an expression of your own soul and spirituality. Like whether when you go through a, let's say, spiritual awakening traditionally, or something where you're like discovering yourself more, if that has an impact on how you dress yourself. I'm curious if that's something that you experienced as well. That's my first thought right now.
So when I was taking my fashion psychology course, it was interesting because the what I was really interested in was the thought process for people, how fashion affects who they are as people, and vice versa. When someone is growing into who they are as a person, whether they're getting to know themselves or they have a spiritual kind of journey, how does that change the way you express yourself and your outside appearance? Which I do think, for me personally, becoming more spiritual, I don't think it's changed my style so much. It's more about I'm just more conscious of what I'm putting on my body, what I really need. I'm sorting through a lot of stuff because usually, you know this, when you're on a spiritual journey, you should just start doing away with things that don't serve you anymore. And so, and that has to do with clothing or interiors or books or to free your mind, right? So you can start to hold space for things to come into your life, for blessings. Yeah.
I actually have a similar experience now that you're talking about it. I totally forgot that while I was getting more into mindfulness, I would be more conscious about like my physical body. And at that point, I was like, why am I wearing polyester? It just makes my armpits like sweaty and disgusting. Or like, why do I wear leggings that are like mixed material? Because I just sweat immediately. And I was like, I think that comes through my body awareness I'm just creating right now. And then as you said, I was just like getting rid of things.
Yeah. And so let's talk about your spiritual journey. When did it start? Has it always been there? Is this something you're kind of slowly going into?
I think it's always been around because my mom is very spiritual, but she's also very religious. So she comes from a Catholic background, and that is like, I had mixed feelings.
Yeah.
Us needing to pray quite often was like, especially so my parents divorced when I was 8, and before that was pretty mellow. And then when she is a single mom, everything she could like hold on to was a belief system, and church gave her that. So all of a sudden we were like praying, and I was like, I don't like this.
Yeah.
And she would have, like, the astrologist read her chart, and like the angel woman talking to the angels, and she would always drag me along because it gave her so much like energy for her life. But I was just like, what the fuck, mother?
Exactly.
I was like, what the heck is wrong with you? You must be having a crisis. Like some distance later, just me exploring it for myself, I'm like, oh my God, I know angels. I now have an astrologist. I'm like, okay, we're actually back to what my mom was trying to share with me, but it just had to click for myself. It's with all the things, you just have to experience yourself in order to. It happened very cheesy timeline of me going to Australia and doing yoga for the first time, like, I don't know, 10 years ago.
Okay.
Meditating for the first time. And then I think it intensified within the last 5 years of doing a lot of meditation retreats.
Yeah.
Trying out different schools of thoughts and stuff.
Nice.
Yeah.
Do you have a daily ritual routine that you incorporate?
With life, I say it's daily. It comes in waves. So sometimes I meditate daily, then other times it's every second day. So I think meditation is the one that keeps sticking to me because it's also so rich and diverse.
Yeah.
But I'm trying to find these, like, for me, it's really important to incorporate it in my everyday life. So when I'm on the bike, is there anything I can listen to that makes me more like centered or aware? Or is there like talking about perfumes later is like, how can I apply a scent that makes me feel more empowered or more centered or more balanced, like looking at these small things. And for me, it's important to work with the cycle of like the moon cycle and my menstrual cycle, and seeing how energy can flow, but it doesn't always flow linear, right? It's like this constant change.
Constantly. It's funny because I'm the same. I grew up in a very religious home. I was a pastor's kid and really turned away from that whole thing for a long time because it was so shoved down my throat. I didn't have a choice, right? And how it's funny how I talk about, my parents' spirituality. I wouldn't say spirituality, more religion, as like, wow, they're cuckoo. And then I think, well, but I'm going down the same route, just as far as in spirituality and astrology and tarot and moon cycles. So we all can get on our bandwagon, right? And but I think it's more, spirituality is about how you feel and how it makes you want to be a better person, right? Without the pressure. Because I think a lot of times too, because spirituality is such a trend now, like everything becomes a trend, that I ask about the rituals because it's a daily practice, right? It's something that's best for you, and not this pressure of you have to do this every single day or you're not technically a spiritual person, right?
Yeah.
There's so much, I find, got to do this, got to do this. And what I've learned also interviewing other spiritual individuals is just pick out one thing that works for you and grow with that. And do you have one thing you think that's working for you? Is it the meditation, or do you have something else?
I think it's more journaling, because I've been doing that since like literally I started being able to write words.
Nice.
And I even have my diaries from back then. It's scary and exciting at the same time. So for me, it's more about putting things out of the head onto paper. I think that's something that can be like a mindful practice in terms of spirituality. It keeps tracking me into finding like sisterhood and connection with other strong females, not even strong, just females, and women. Yeah, and sometimes I'm like more connected with, I'm struggling with my feminine side, I must say. Like I've been trying to neglect it or make it be stronger or different. And yeah, like there's a pull definitely for me to embody it more, but also find others around me that I can share that with.
Oh, that's cool. And it's interesting that you say about the feminine side, because it's, we sometimes as women are like, oh, you're too feminine, or you're this way or this way. But that actually is the most beautiful part, I think, of women, is we can embrace this really beautiful spiritual side. Because for me personally, I think femininity and spirituality go such hand in hand, don't they?
Yeah.
Because
like softness and vulnerability, like
yeah,
feeling the tactile things. Yeah. I just the other day had like thought about 2020 and if there's like a mantra or like a belief that then should be working on. And it was also channeled to be talking to the universe. And then literally my mind went, the dark feminine isn't bad. And I was like, where the heck has that been coming from? And I don't know anything. I'm like, I know about Lilith in the Bible and like being in hell, but there's literally nothing that I associate with it. And I'm like, I didn't even know that the dark feminine is a thing until I looked on Pinterest. And now I'm like, okay, thanks, universe. So let's see what's going to come up in the next couple of months.
That's really cool. The dark feminine in there, I think I find it quite intriguing, because there is this dark side of us, but it's not dark. It doesn't mean that it's more just I think more deeper in depth. It's this
I feel like
powerful.
It's not necessarily negative as like dark and light are positive and negative. It's more like, I don't know, for me, she's like wild and sexual and just like doing a thing and taking space and like just using that energy. But I'm also like, let's see when the podcast launches. Maybe by that time I already have some more insights on what my dark feminine wants to be.
Yeah, I think it's quite interesting that you mentioned that, because that's the running theme for me as well recently, is this embrace your sexuality, your sensuality, be wild, don't be afraid to go there. And a lot of times I think for women, I can only speak for myself, but I can also think that sometimes you don't know what you're going to find when you go there. And it could be very surprising for certain individuals, right? Of how they're, all of a sudden this woman comes out and you're like, whoa, there's confidence. I feel beautiful. I feel strong. I feel amazing. And you're like, yeah, that's why you go to the dark place. You might find all this stuff for yourself, which is like, and witches too. I think a lot of times people are scared because they associate the dark feminine with like a witchy side, which I'm thinking, fuck yeah, that sounds awesome.
Exactly. I'm like, I want her alongside me.
Exactly. It's like bring on those beautiful witches along. And so it's interesting that you love journaling so much, because then you started your reflections, correct? Do you want to explain what they are
Yes.
to us?
I think I can show you mine. So there's already some missing because I've been using them.
Amazing.
But basically, I've out of Corona, pandemic, lockdown, being bored kind of thing, I was like, I'm too lazy to write down good journaling prompts from Pinterest or from in wherever I find it. So I'm just going to create stickers that I'll share with the world.
I'm proud
and
of.
I think more there's very different ones. Which one do I have? What touches me?
Nice.
What touches you, Kelly?
What touches me? That's a good one. Friends touch me. Yes.
But yeah, like I think for me, as I said earlier, it's important to incorporate it in everyday moments.
Yeah.
And also the methodology behind the stickers is actually like I fiddled around a bit of being like, okay, I want like a certain percentage of them to be for gratitude practices. Like what kind of skill do you use or train when you use the stickers?
Yeah.
And then another skill could be about like nonviolent communication. And the other one is like tuning into the body. And then the other one is more about like emotions and needs. So it's really about having a bunch of stickers on there that seem pretty random. And some of them are super like easy. It's like, how do I feel today? And then the other one is like, what is your ego doing to block your healing? So
I love
like
that.
of things.
Yeah.
And let's see where that's going to go. It's literally been launched in summer. Just did like a German selection of it. And I'm thinking of doing more like specific ones, like maybe for moon reflections or.
Oh, cool.
Let's see.
That's really nice because it's, you have a lot of people that are a little bit nervous about journaling because one, they literally, like you said, they don't know where to start. Yeah. And the whole morning journaling, like, oh, you have to have 3 pages. I'm like, no, you don't. You don't have to have 3 pages. And your stickers are perfect because it's like that one question you're asking, and your stickers, they're asking the right questions, right? There are right. I want to say there's not right or wrong questions, but ones that get you thinking, right?
Yeah, exactly. I was so once I was doing like a 5-year journal where every day I would need to answer a question, and some of them were literally like, how happy am I with my weight? What's inside my fridge? What do I hate about my haircut? And I was like,
why? What?
We don't need, we don't need these types of questions. We need to ask ourselves a bit deeper and look within.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's literally about self-reflection, and that's why I call them reflection.
Nice, but it's really nice though, and I love too because you can just take them with you. You can stick them in your journal, and then you can randomly pick one, or if you feel that you've been called to pick a certain one. That's really nice. I've
really seen nice. Some in the community stick it on the mirror or like window. So every time in the morning they open the window, they're like, what am I wishing for today? Or like, what makes me shine from within? Perfect to put it on a mirror.
Absolutely. Yeah. That's so cool because also it's such a good practice. So in the morning when you're going and you're looking in the mirror and you read that, it's a positive kind of affirmation as well that you can say to yourself, which is a great way to start the day.
I was also inspired by it, and I placed like one in each room of my home.
Oh, cool.
It's not too many, so it's just like some sneaky peeks. So you don't see them every day. So it's like, hey.
Yeah. Oh, that's brilliant. I mean, I love that because, you just need to, some people need to also have the work taken away from them, right? So to be able to free their mind and have something so easy, and then just whatever comes to your mind at that moment with those, that's really nice. It's really, really nice. And and so from the reflections, you've been doing that, and then you're now also doing aroma workshops. Do you call them aroma workshops? Or are they more like a scent workshop? Describe them and how you even got into this. This is so interesting.
Yeah. Me being a slashy and multi-generalist, like, ta-da! How do we structure this? Well done, Kelly. It's been bringing me a lot of healing to focus. I just more on like discovering my feminine side. I was like, perfume can do so much with like my self-perception. Putting different perfumes on in the morning makes me actually feel different way, the same as like clothing does, right?
Yeah.
So in the pandemic, I started being more interested in aromatherapy, and now I'm giving workshops mainly in Berlin and private sessions.
Nice.
I call them scent workshops right now, which is just like a brief introduction of like, how does the nose work? How do we smell? How we get it? It's almost like a wine tasting, like me going through history, also going through like 20 different notes we can smell. And then in the end, we make our own little perfume. It's just like a 2 milliliter small thing to take home.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because then talking about smell, it is processed in the nose and it goes into the brain directly in the limbic system. This is where emotions and memories are stored, right?
Okay. Yeah.
So no matter what we smell, it can activate something of the past. So here it comes together with like me finding my purpose. I'm like, reflection is about finding something within.
Yeah.
Smell actually does it on like a very chemical level already to find things within.
Interesting.
And then aromatherapy really works on many aspects, like not only being processed there when you inhale it through the nose, but also like the physiology almost of being like, you can take in more oxygen or you can lower your body temperature. Like essential oils can do all of that. And I'm like, wow, this is a whole world.
Completely.
Yeah.
I mean, that's amazing.
Just like they can do what? So for me, it's really about finding sober ways to go within. Like I've had a phase where I was trying out a lot of psychedelics as well, and I was like, I don't need to go through these like intense hardcore experiences or like do a meditation thing for like 10 days straight, 10 hours a day. I'm like, well, it can be as easy as like smelling the right thing in the state that feels intuitively right. So it's a bit about like making people feel more powerful by the way they put scent on their skin, but also making people be able to look within through smell.
Wow. And so do you find, I mean, clearly it's quite a personal thing, the scent, right? That's going to strike a memory or whatever. But do you find that there's some scents overall that really kind of help calm people or kind of relax the room, do you find?
So like there's citrus essences like grapefruit or lemon that we can use in the morning to just like put more oxygen in the air if we use it in a diffuser. But also if we put it on the skin and we smell it, it's like it brightens up the mood. We get a bit like jolly and happy. And then there's other ones that are oftentimes from woods like cedar wood or sandalwood, where it's like, wow, it's really grounding. It's literally like it comes from wood, a tree that has big trunks, and it's just like takes the vibe a bit like stable. I love playing with it. And then I differentiate really between like essential oils and aromatherapy and fine fragrance, which is like what we mix in perfumes. And then there's some that people really go crazy with every workshop. Like I've had a couple of workshops by now, and there's some that everyone in the room is just like, sex. And I'm like,
ooh, that is so
So all the listeners out there, it's called Molecule 1. It's been like the basic bit of perfumery. Most of the perfumes have it in their formulations. I'd say like, I don't know, 60-90% commercial perfumes. And there's others that are used in soaps. So it's like clean, fresh. And you're just like, the association in our society is there as well. So it's really funny. It's not only like a wine tasting where you have like personal preference, but you always have like societal influence on it as well.
Oh, wow. And so when you do your workshops, I mean, I find I'm fascinated with scent just because I have the nose of a fucking, I don't know, Doberman pincher. I don't even know if they have good smells, but I mean, I walk into a house and I'm like, something smells off. What is that? And in my house, it has to smell good because I want a welcoming smell, right? When someone walks in, they're like, they feel comfortable. But Yeah, I'm so fascinated by this because it is super interesting when you walk by a shop and there's a certain scent and it takes you right back to when you're 5 years old and there's cinnamon rolls on the table, or the best holiday you've ever had in Bali. I mean, whatever, right?
Yeah, totally.
It's so fascinating how it triggers happiness and how it can trigger an emotional response, and how you can work with that, which is fascinating, I think.
I mean, there's like some, for me, personal anecdotal evidence where I was like, you can use them as a tool. So for a while, I wasn't able to smell sage. I hated sage essential oil. I would spot it in the room and be like, from all these 100 bottles, there's one that I don't like, and it would always be sage. And I was like, oh my God, like meeting my perfume friends, hanging out, smelling stuff, and they would have a sage bottle. And I was like, ugh.
Yeah.
And sage is therefore like the feminine energy, coming back to that and being like,
interesting,
working with the womb, working with like the root chakra, and also maybe also a trigger warning now for your listeners, because we're talking about trauma here.
Yeah.
That they can just skip forward a couple of seconds. But for me, I had like a sexual trauma come up that I knew was really with my womb. Like, when I meditate, sometimes I would like feel certain body parts, but my womb would always be numb. And I was like, I don't have a connection to it. I don't like, somehow it doesn't
that's
work.
interesting. Okay.
And it totally unlocked itself. And suddenly I love sage. My
whole
nose just flips, and I put like, I burn sage, and I have like sage oil in my new perfume creation. Like, what just happened here? Like,
oh my God, that's just so amazing. It's like mind blowing for me.
And yeah, I'm just on this path of like restoring the connection with my womb and like healing that sexual trauma of abuse. And suddenly my nose and my whole system is like, we kind of like that. I'm like, yeah, I wonder what the meaning of sage is. I'm like, oh, feminine energy, womb healing.
Wow.
So, yeah, talking about being witchy, this is exactly what I want to work with. It's just like,
wow. I mean, but it's just so powerful how also trauma in our body or any kind of experience, we can hold that in, and how it triggers everything else. Like, it's all connected. And until you do find that, or you work through that experience, then you can heal yourself. That, I mean, it's just a really powerful thing, what trauma does to our bodies, and how important it is to allow yourself the time, to then work through it, and how scent can actually also play a part in that. I mean, it's just about everything is connected, right? And how important it is for us to be connected to ourselves so we can be connected to everything else.
Yeah.
Wow. I mean, that just literally, I'm still like dumbfounded. Like,
oh, right. And I was so in doubt. I was like, I think because I had a bottle of sage in my office room.
Yeah.
Maybe it's off, like, because essential oils, they're natural. So after a while, they just expire. And I was like, I think it's expired. That's why I can smell it. So I bought another bottle and I was like, it smells pretty good. So I bought another bottle and I was like, it smells even better. And I'm like, what is happening? And I feel like these are the small wonders of like being connected with yourself and your
completely
spirituality, where you're like, I'm attracting amazing situations in my life.
Yeah. I mean, you've just unlocked a whole part of you that was locked. And that
it wasn't just like that. It was like brutal.
Yeah, no, I could imagine. And I think the thing that's really important as well is when it comes into spirituality, when it comes with getting to know yourself, it's a lot of fucking hard work. But it can also be super beautiful and amazing, and it can be fun as well. Because I think there's so much around spirituality that, yeah, I call myself spiritual. It's like, well, put in the work, because it will be work. 2, yeah, there's going to be some really hard times you've got to go through, because you're facing your inner demons, right? You're facing your ego. You're facing all of that. Yeah, but then it's also, it doesn't always have to be doom and gloom, because a lot of people are like, oh, spirituality, it can be fun. It can be with sense, with dancing, with letting yourself go, with psychedelic experiences, which I find also quite fascinating at times. And so, there is this whole other thing you're unlocking, which is great. But I just find that amazing how you did the work, right? And now this is this is the aftermath of the joy that gets to come with it, right? Because when, you know, you get to experience something you never experienced before.
Yeah,
which is healing, which is amazing.
Yeah, I very much agree with like healing and spirituality is just like, it's a cycle and it can go mad deep down.
Yeah.
But then it's like phoenix out of the ashes, kind of bliss and happiness, and
Completely
allowing all of that and observing it. I think it's, for me, in terms of practice, like the non-duality of trying to distance yourself from what is and what you are without a self, but being like, these are emotions and they're not myself. This is the ego and that's not me. This is my inner critic. Like, she's hanging out over there, but she's not me.
Yeah.
And just like observing that.
That's really nice. And do you think that with scents as well, that they can help you kind of make sure you know the difference? Because I mean, inner critic, we all have it. I deal with inner critic all the time. And then you have the ego, and then you have the emotions. So it's quite interesting how scents could probably help you realize that that's an emotion, because that scent brings up something, right?
And it can also help with something that's called like scent conditioning. So let's say I have that bottle of a mixture and I just call it like grounding. So in the beginning, for the first times we smell it when we're grounded already. We're like, okay, we're in bed, we're comfy, after meditation, after yoga class, whatever it is, in your partner's arms. You smell that, you associate it, you train your brain to be like, we are relaxed when we smell that essence. So the next time, after a while, after a month or two, the next time you have maybe a panic attack, or you go deep down in your spiritual hole and you're facing your demons, you're like, I'm not grounded at all. That's when you smell it again and your brain is like, never mind, we are like feeling cozy. So I think it can also help with processing things like traumas or helping with healing, but it's super individual. Like, I wouldn't be able to tell if you like sage or if it actually helps.
But it also must be super interesting when you go to the workshops and smell these essential oils and fragrances, what you end up being attracted and drawn to, because it could be something completely bizarre. You're like, really? And then that's
for me, it's the joy of not telling the participants what they smell.
Cool.
Yeah, exactly. Because I really want them to have that intuitive decision. And sometimes they're like, this is pretty good. What is it? And then I tell them, they're like, ooh, I thought I don't like it. And I'm like, that's exactly why we're turning off your brain. Like, for me, it's about holding that space of intuition and like turning within. And it's super fun. Like, one time when I was still working in fine fragrance only, so it was outside the workshops, I mixed a perfume and she started crying. Like, she obviously had like her input on it and I just mixed it for her. I was just her channel basically. And she smelled it and she started crying. And the only thing she said was like, it smells like me. And
oh my God, that's so cool. Wow.
And she just left the shop and she was like, you created something that smells like me. And I'm like, wait, it's not only me creating, it's actually you giving me direction. So I did a bit of magic, but we did it together. And just seeing that, like, that's the aspect of fine fragrance, of being like altering and like being confident and like wearing yourself with pride. And but sometimes also like not masking, as I said with the one before, like sometimes when you may have PMS or you're feeling depressed and down, you don't want to be like exaggerating and like being all happy, because it's just going to get you out of your natural balance. Sometimes it's good to just have the comfortable ones and comforting, and they make you warm and cozy, so you can just cry out your tears. Like,
I mean, wow, that's quite beautiful how you can, it smells like me. But it's such a beautiful thing as well, because also people have their own scent, right? And, you know, like my husband has his certain scent and I love his scent because it belongs to him, and my mother has their own scent. So it's also very comforting. So it's nice when you can help make someone their own, this is me, you know, and that it's just really, like you said, you just feel confident. Then the next day you have a meeting or something you're nervous about, you put it on, you're like, I can do this, I'm okay, you know. And that's just, wow, 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 wow. So describe, because you do these amazing aroma workshops in Berlin. And I've watched like a preview and stuff on Instagram. Does music, because you guys are playing music and you have a fan, does that also kind of help the experience with the aromas and smelling it and taking
Yeah.
it in?
I mean, what you've described now was more of a scent performance. I've been
Okay.
doing it before at festivals as well, where it almost looks like a DJ setup. I have like different notes and different
Yeah.
things. And then I have diffusers that diffuse in like
Okay.
intervals.
Yeah.
And then I just like send into the whole room, and it's me accompanying the music. So music is
Cool.
playing and I'm just following what the music does. And intuitively I can be like, oh, now it's getting dark. Now I'm going to put the woods in and the smoky stuff and the leather. And then when the music is like more funky, I'm like, yay, put a bit of the flowers. So that's
Cool.
like me performing in
Okay.
more of like an atmosphere and an experience.
Yeah.
And then the scent workshops is literally like a wine or chocolate tasting, more like educational and explorative.
Okay.
And then there's like the private sessions that I do where people can create their own private perfume with me. It's like a 3-step process.
Nice.
And I'm booked out for until March.
Amazing. That's
Well,
brilliant.
yeah. Yeah.
That's so cool. And so do you then, with the 3-step, then do they basically, so you meet up with them 3 times then, right? Because does that need to sit for a bit and they need to come back and smell it again?
Exactly. I tried it virtual as well, which does work. It's a bit more difficult, but I will just ask more annoying questions in the process.
Yeah.
Or like describing kind of the categories or previous perfumes that you liked. And from that, I'm giving you example of like 20 essences that we can smell virtually or in person. And like intuitively trying to follow you.
Yeah.
And there we set a vision. So that's the first set of like smelling 20 things and setting a vision of being like, I want to feel great on stage. And I think this works and this works. So I'm putting proportions together. And then in the second stage, I've did like 2 samples. And from these 2 samples, we will make the final one in the third step.
Oh my God, I'm totally booking in with you. This sounds so amazing. Like, and in case to come to Berlin more too. Like, hey,
definitely for the workshops.
Oh my God, that's wow. And that's also, for those of you listening, also a really good gift to give someone, because then you're having them create their own personal the me scent, right? Which is really phenomenal. Wow.
I mean, I'm trying as much to follow, and I've had all genders. So for me, it's also about the practice of being like, I'm not going to put my ego in, but who does Kelly want to be in? And looking at that.
Which is, I mean, to be honest, this is such a really good exercise for oneself as well. If you have to ask yourself those questions.
Yeah.
What do I how do I want to be portrayed? How do I want to portray myself and be seen? Where am I going in the future? How do I feel right now? How do I want to feel? Do I feel experience joy? Do I want to add more joy? I mean, these are the questions you should be, I hate using that word, but they're good questions to ask yourself, right? And so it's amazing how scent can do that for you. So it's just it's just another step to discovering who you are, which is really cool.
And for me, it's also exciting to see where I can take it this year. Like, because of the trauma that came, I haven't done much in the past 2 months until Christmas. And now I'm like, okay, I'm working with scent. I want to work more with spirituality. Where is this going to go? And thinking of breath and like putting that together, and also like group sessions where we smell certain things and maybe we journal, or maybe like we move, like what can I explore? And that's going to be exciting.
Oh, that's so exciting. This then leads into my last question is, what do you see for yourself in the future? I mean, it's all about doing the inner work now so you can be happy now, but you also want to have a vision of yourself in the future, right? Where you'd like to progress. So for you, what is that?
Because in some aspects it's really clear, and then in other aspects it's just like a gray bubble.
I
have this vision of it's like, well, I know that by the age of like 50 or 60 I'll have like an amazing house in the woods, in the forest. I'll wear like flowy dresses with like long sleeves, like very Asian inspired. I'll have long gray hair. And for me, it feels like I know that I want to invite young, like the next generation, to visit me on that land and do healing and so.
Yeah.
But I have no idea with what. Like, I just know I will have this house and it's going to be like a retreat, and it wants to like have me learn from the next generation, but the next generation also hearing the wisdom that I've acquired by that time.
Yeah.
So like that I know is going to happen, but then what I'm going to share in my wood house, I don't know.
But that's the process of trusting yourself, one, and trusting the universe that it's going to bring all that in, because you're doing the work now. You're making space for those blessings to come in, for that magic to come in, right? It's funny that you said that, because that's exactly I see myself doing the exact same thing. I was doing this guided meditation, and I go to the same building every time, and then I did one meditation the other day about I'm facing myself when I'm super old and I have like long white hair and I'm sitting around with a bunch of young people, just like, I like this. Okay, this is cool. How I'm going to get there? No fucking clue. But
our inner grannies can visit each other and it's like, how's it going at your retreat? Well,
exactly. It's like, I mean, I love it though. I mean, that's the whole process, right? You learn more about yourself, and then the where you were going before, for me, fashion and stuff, even though I still love it and I'm passionate about it, maybe it's not going to be that forever. It's going to go in a different direction. But how you can still encourage people to find themselves so they can express themselves through fashion, right? It can go hand in hand. So I will link all of your details so people can book in with you for scent workshops. Get in fast because she's booking up, which is great. Also, you can order her reflections and follow her for all her great sustainability tips and her fashion videos and her talking about amazing stuff within sustainability and fashion. So thank you for your amazing talk today. And I really, really appreciate it. We've had some technical difficulties, so if she cuts in and out at the beginning, I apologize, but eventually I figured it out. Just stream off your phone. It's fine. I blame it on COVID and everyone working from home.
Yeah.
But this is when flexibility comes into play. So thanks
for having me. It was really nice to like chat and just explore bits and pieces we have in common as well.
Yeah, it's really nice. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Yeah.